Hello everyone. I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about how I started to create my own creativity journal, and I wanted to share these different these prompts that I have for becoming a more curious person. And I also wanted to talk to you guys about the importance of writing down your ideas and some tips for how you could do that. So this might be like 3 videos in one, but it's more of a rambly chat. So before I made my creativity journal, which I've shared about in other videos, I started to realize that I was a very curious person. So on top of being a creative person, I was curious about things. I loved learning. I I feel so lucky to have been born in the time when information is really easily accessible. With the search, with like the flick of a finger, you could search for whatever you want to know. And yes, you have to be discerning of the information that you're reading online, but you could have access to hundreds and thousands of books and videos and information about anything that you could possibly be interested in. So I didn't see a lot of people talking about how important curiosity is. And for me, that was like a really important skill to have. And especially as we started to see like the rise in fake news and the polarization of views and ideas, I thought that we needed to have like a revival of curiosity as a thing that should be nurtured in children, taught in schools and encouraged in schools, encouraged by parents in their children, and by friends in their friend circles. So I wrote a little booklet called How Curiosity Brought the Cat Back to Life. I don't think I have it with me right now. I'll put a link to it in the description box. It's one of the freebies I have in my website. And I wrote about the different ways that I have nurtured my own curiosity. And so I did that. I created that before I created my journals. But a lot of what I had in that workbook is actually what has been inspiring me for the last year, like the exploration about the inner child and creativity and the inner child came out of that. And more recently, I made this little journaling kit called Nurturing a Curiosity Practice, where I took the prompts that I included in that workbook and made them into a smaller size paper where you can print them out, cut them out, and then stick them inside your traveler's notebook or inside a smaller notebook and just paste them. So some of the things that I distilled from my own experience about being a curious person was that number one is that you have to pay attention to the things that are happening in your life. Because when you're paying attention and you're observing things, then you start to wonder about things, you start asking questions, and you can follow those different inklings. So for me, curiosity is really tied in with creativity and with intuition and with imagination. Like if I could take my witchy cauldron and put different things that would help you in your life, those things I just listed would be like my main ingredients. So being observant was one of the things that I included here. And sometimes some people are naturally observant and some people are not naturally observant, but I think it's a skill that you can nurture in yourself, and you can not force, but like create the habit of paying attention and noticing what's going on around you. So I have some prompts for that. I also included in that little journaling kit that I have for sale on my Etsy store. These affirmation cards that I made. So we start here with why curiosity is important, how curiosity can help you open up different ways of looking at the world. I think if we were more curious about each other, we would be less likely to jump to conclusions and just judge people when we meet them. When you approach people with curiosity, there's just a different kind of interaction that you will come away with. So I have that curiosity will help you develop strong relationships, and that curiosity is also important for your spiritual life. And curiosity for me, like I said, I have all these questions, and questions are the main ingredient of curiosity. And then the desire to search and find the answers to those questions are also like the next step. But in my experience, you won't always get answers to your questions, but the questions are the most important part. Whether you get the answer or not is not as important as having that question that motivates you to go on a journey to find an answer. So another suggestion I have for being a more curious person is to make a list of the things that you're interested in. And for some people who have interests that are really broad and diverse, sometimes we get told by society that we have to be very like narrow focused on what we're interested in, because you want to hone in on skills and like become an expert or a specialist. And that's something that has not worked for me, because I have so many different things that I'm interested in. And I used to feel that something was wrong with me because I could not just pick one thing and say, this is my thing. And even now, I can't pick one thing and say, this is my thing. I have a lot of things that I love to do. And over the last few years, I have learned to accept that part of me, or accept that that's part of who I am, and that it works for me. I learned so much, and by having all these different interests, the next step after getting the information and the knowledge would be to see different ways that you could combine them. And that's when creativity comes in after curiosity. Because being creative doesn't mean that we're inventing the wheel, but it means that we're seeing a wheel and seeing a stick and thinking that those two could go together and make a cart or something. So creativity is combining ideas that already exist into something new. So I mentioned being observant, how that's really important. I also mentioned a little bit the importance of questions. And I think we all have questions throughout our day, throughout our life, and we don't honor the questions as much as we should. We either forget about them, or we feel frustrated by a question because it's not it's not an outcome. A question is not a result. It's not an answer. So I should do a different video about questions, because questions were the very first thing that inspired me to start on this journey of discovering, learning about myself and all the different things that I have learned about. So I have here that when you have a question, you need to pay attention to it. See it as an important part of the puzzle. Sit with it. Keep pulling on the thread that question is asking you to look into. Then I invite you to journal about it and write down different things that you're interested in learning about. I remember, I don't know where I got this idea, but I remember that I used to think, because I valued questions so much, and because questions had been guiding me for a long time, I used to say that when you felt stuck, you just needed to give your mind a question. So you have a problem, you need to give that problem over to your mind and let your mind do the work to bring you the answer. And it might not give it to you in one day, maybe not even 1 week. It might take even years for the answer to come back, or for you to start piecing together the parts that make up the answer. But so I used to have that belief that you give your mind a question and your mind is constantly working to figure out the answer to that question. And now I still believe that, but I have like a next level view of that. Not only is your mind working to get you to figure out what the answer or the next step based on that question is, the whole world around you is communicating with you through these questions. And I started to figure that out when I started working with the tarot and started to develop my intuition and started to see how the world is always in communication with us. And you can ask yourself a question and you can pull some cards from a deck of cards, or you can pay attention to the symbols that are outside your doorstep and see those as a sign from the universe responding to your question. So questions are really, really important, and embracing the questions and not feeling that discomfort, because questions are uncomfortable. When people ask you questions, maybe you feel a sense of defensiveness because you are being questioned, but questions are very important. Then I talk a little bit about defining your values, because as you go into the world, and if you don't have your foundations straight or strong enough, then you might fall for a lot of different things. So that's why knowing yourself and clarifying your values is so important in the path to curiosity. So then these are some of the decorations that I have. I think curiosity is definitely something that can and should be nurtured. And for me, one of the best ways that I have been able to nurture my curiosity is through writing. And in my journal that I've mentioned before, I ended up, there's a page where I titled it Open the Door to Curiosity. And there's this space for you to make notes about the things that you're interested in right now, the questions that you have, things that you saw that you were curious about. And not only is there this one page here, for the weekly check-in, I have a question about what do you want to learn about this week. And the learning and the curiosity, for me, they go hand in hand, because when you're curious about something, you want to learn more about it, you want to look at it and understand it and experience it, and you're just in a different relationship with something that you're curious about versus something that you're placing judgment upon. So I think that's all I want to say about curiosity, and thank you so much for tuning in to this video. I'm going to create a separate video to talk about ideas so that they can be a little mini series. So thank you so much.